Greetings, YouTube. I've spoken about The Hobbit before. I think you could have made The Hobbit into a really tight, interesting, fun, exciting, one-movie tale of adventure. I think you could have even made it into two still entertaining, slightly expanded story of The Hobbit, and I think you could pull it off. I really do. There is no way in hell you could make 3 movies out of this story and have it make any sense or it be interesting in any way, shape, or form. The story of The Hobbit ends with the death of Smaug, which happens 10 minutes into the 3rd movie. Movie's done. Go home! But no, we can't have that now, can we? That's where you end it. That's where there's the happily ever after part. But nope, we're not going to get that. This is supposed to be a story for kids. Really. It's an adventure story for kids. And that's when you should have ended it. But they had to drag it out. They had to throw in characters that didn't have anything to do with the story. They had to make up entire sections. They had to just... Jackson just did so much crap here. Now, I've heard that he was pressured into 3 movies by the studio. So maybe I should be lambasting the suits. I have an opinion that neckties cut the blood supply off to your brain. Okay, maybe it's they that are to blame. But he still could have done something more with what he had. Now, I've said in the past, and I'm going to keep saying this, whether you're doing science fiction or fantasy, there are elements that are based in reality and there are elements that aren't. Now, for the parts of the story that are not based in reality, to make them seem fantastical and for them to make sense in context, the parts of the story that take place in the real world have to function like the real world. Okay? I'll give you a prime example. That should happen whether you're in a fantasy setting or a science fiction setting. Gravity should work. Okay? Now, if there's reasons that gravity doesn't work, those are the fantastic elements. You then have to explain it. But everything else that isn't explained by that fantastical. Okay? So it's not a magic, it's not a hoverboard or something. Just ordinary, everyday people walking through their ordinary, everyday lives. If they drop a glass case, it should fall on the ground just like that. You need to give it a firm foundation upon which you can build the fantastical. Okay, got that? Good. So, Bard, the best human archer there is, can't just take a really cool black arrow and a really cool crafted bow and slay the dragon. Nope, can't do that in this movie. He has to take a broken bow. Oh, there's going to be spoilers here. If you haven't seen this movie, spoilers everywhere, folks. Though I can't imagine how this is spoiler-filled. It's a story that's been around for decades, but we're going to say it's spoiler-filled. He takes a broken bow and then instantaneously turns it into a crossbow by shoving broken limbs into the framework of a tower. Using a bow to fire a 4-foot steel wrought iron shaft made of black iron. A shaft that would have gone about 3 feet if released from that bow. Okay? He kills the dragon. Dragon falls down. Movie's over. We're done. Nope. Now there has to be the Battle of the 5 Armies. So we get to see all kinds of crap with the dwarves dwarves that we don't need to know about. That we don't need. We see conflict and turmoil in this psychedelic section that looks something out of like it came out of the Bakshi version of The Hobbit. But you know, nope. That's okay. And then the army starts showing up. Now, I may be wrong here, but I don't remember the elves actually firing an arrow in that battle. They were willing to jump over a dwarven shield wall, even though they had thousands and thousands of archers. And they could have pinned the orcs to the ground like butterflies in a museum display. But nope. Who needs shield? Who needs arrow volleys? When you can just have elves skipping over dwarves and slaying orcs. But you did have lots of pretty CGI in this. The pretty CGI dragon, the pretty CGI dwarven armies, the pretty CGI elven armies, the pretty CGI orc armies. The CGI artists in this were at top form. Well, except maybe for that one dwarven character that didn't look quite real. He was kind of in the uncanny valley. I'm not sure why the actor who did his voice wasn't playing the character, but he wasn't. But nope. Just lots of pretty CGI. And then the second orc army shows up with giant worms that burrow out of the earth, flooding the field with more orcs. You've got giant worms that burrow through the earth. Why didn't you burrow inside the dwarven citadel in the mountain? Or better, just drive under the mountain, because apparently there are kingdoms to the north which must not be linked, otherwise it will end all the world. But you've just shown that fortresses mean nothing. You've just shown that orc armies can bust into any city, any fortress, anywhere on the continent at will. Just burrow underneath them, and then pour orcs into your city or citadel with a secure supply line. I was dumbfounded. Absolutely dumbfounded by this. Elves that don't shoot arrows, orcs that don't take the best strategic, tactical advantage known to all of humanity, and don't take advantage of it. What general wouldn't give his left nut and leg, sorry for the sexist comment, to be able to burrow inside any city, any fortress, under any mountain range? I was just dumbfounded. And at the end of the battle, after they kill the leader, there's no resolution. There's no rally. There's no, woohoo, we killed the orcs. There's no watching the orcs pour back through the tunnels into the mountains to plague us in the Lord of the Ring movies. No. Nothing. There's no resolution. There's no feeling of closure at all. Just a bunch of mopey dwarves, a wizard, and a halfling. Oh, a hobbit. I'm sorry. A hobbit. I can say hobbit here. This is a Tolkien property now, isn't it? I was just bored for the most of this film. Really. Seriously, bored. I'm like leaning in my chair like... I just didn't give a crap about anybody in this film. It was just dull. If they'd handed these armies to some wargamers or role players and said, here you go, show me what you can do with this, they would have come up with... First of all, the orcs would have said, I just tunnel under the mountain. Battle's over. And if you said you have to fight in the plane, okay, I gotta fight in the plane. I don't know why, I gotta fight in the plane. And then the elves would have said, well, I just decimate them with my archers. Nope. My wife did like the leaping, like she liked the pig. She thought the pig was cute. But she loved the rams. Those were awesome. They were awesome. Dire rams that could hop up mountainsides with riders. That was cool. But my wife did insist that when I did this video, that I discuss one aspect of this film that is probably the takeaway aspect for my wife, the thing that really stood out to her the most in this film. And I don't know if it stood out the most for me. I think the stupidity of the elves and the stupidity of the orc armies was the thing that stuck out most. But the aspect that stood out for her is that the third installment of The Hobbit was a marvelous excuse for giant eagles to drop bears on orcs.